Welcome, everybody, to Sunday's Collider Mailbag. I am one of your hosts today, John Rocha. Very happy to be on the show. We've got a lot of questions we're going to go through that are sent in by the fans, so I'm looking forward to answering some of those questions. But I am joined, as always, by the amazing Sinead DeVries.
Hey, guys. Happy Sunday. I don't know which camera I'm looking at again. I'm sorry. I do this every time. Is it the one closest to the screen? Small one. All right. Hey, guys. What's up? How's it going? Happy Sunday. Glad to be here.
And joining us, the amazing, the venerable, one of the greatest writers I know of this generation, the incredible Mark Reilly.
Wow. Well, thank you for that, Mr. Rocha. I appreciate that. I try my best. Happy to be here, guys. It's a wonderful Sunday here in the mailbag headquarters. Sure. I just made that up. And it's a far, far away reunion, I got to say. Mr. Rocha and I used to.
Shout out.
So maybe there was some Star Wars questions in here.
Would be nice.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Nice.
All right. Let's, you want to get this going?
Let's do
Let's
it.
get it on.
All right.
Danny writes, hey, Collider. On Friday, I went to see Suicide Squad in the theater. It was okay. Sadly, wasn't as great as I wanted it to be. One of the problems to me was the Joker. I didn't mind the gangster look and attitude they took, and I thought that Jared Leto portrayed the role that was asked of him really well. With that being said, I thought that the Joker forgot to have fun. Even when laughing, he just didn't seem to have any fun. So I want to know if you have any characters that you thought were just missing a little something to make them great. Love your shows and keep on sweating.
Yeah, my answer is Anakin Skywalker. I mean, right off the bat, let's talk Star Wars off the bat, because to me, Hayden Christensen is a good actor. We see, if you ever saw Shattered Glass, he is fantastic in that film. Small little independent film about a true story, about a reporter making up stories, and he got caught. So great. Life is a House, he's good in that film too. And so he definitely has the chops. But I think with the prequels, something was missing. And what was missing was his general understanding of the character of Anakin and the struggle and the conflict. Either there was bad editing or bad shots or what have you, or the dialogue, but something was really missing in his performance that I think could have really enriched the character of Darth Vader, because everyone loves Ewan McGregor as Kenobi, and he really stands out. The reason he stands out is because he's really able to mine the depths of that character as an actor, and I felt like Hayden didn't get there with Anakin, and really was missing a couple of tweaks, and I think Anakin would have killed that. I mean, Hayden Christensen would have killed that part, and we'd have been excited to see him again in the new films.
Oh, man. I share that one. Absolutely. I think that would be my number one, too, and it's what I thought about. To touch on maybe Jared Leto as well. Yeah, his Joker, for me, didn't quite hit the mark. I thought he has promise. I think that we need more of him, but that he was underutilized, and that unfortunately I don't think he was written very well, and I think that has more to do with the rush to get this done more than his actual performance. Yeah. But yeah, thank you. Oh, who was that?
Harloff. It's got to be Harloff.
Of course it was Harloff.
Means you nailed it.
I can't believe he's in here on Sunday. He should be at home. Take care of your kid. All right. But with Hayden Christensen, let me. I think that has more to do with. Sorry, I love Vivian.
We dispense father advice.
Yes,
here.
of course. I think the Hayden Christensen part is more to do with the writing and the fact that he was working alongside a tennis ball for most of his performance. It wasn't written that well.
Yeah.
And I don't fault him. Unfortunately I fault the prequels and Lucas a little bit, and just the over reliance on technology. Hayden Christensen, or the character of Anakin Skywalker, we had that in our mind leading up to these prequels. And when he didn't come out and just nail it, oh man, that's the character you want to nail. You want it to be just so perfect, and unfortunately it didn't hit the mark for me. And to even go with some of the prequels, Count Dooku's part, although he's great, Christopher Lee's great, I just wanted to see more. And again, I think it has more to, like, who is I know the Emperor's the main puppet master behind the scenes, but I wanted more from my villains. They should have kept Darth Maul in, because Darth Maul was fantastic. So,
and I would add one more. I would say Jennifer Garner in Elektra. I think Jennifer Garner, Sidney Bristow, is fantastic in Alias, and if she had brought that kind of character to Elektra, I think we would have enjoyed her performance in that film so much more. Yeah, the film's not that great, but she could have still stood out in her performance, because Sidney Bristow is one of the fantastic characters ever written on television in Alias. If you haven't seen Alias, do yourself a favor, go into a deep dive and enjoy Jennifer Garner kicking so much ass in that film. And so I wish she'd brought more of that instead of a little more of the easier surface modes that she'd played in certain moments in that film. That would have made the character so much more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what do we have next?
Brittany Rodriguez writes, what movie is widely considered overrated that you love anyway?
Wow. It's so subjective, the overrated. I've heard so many people say, well, this movie's overrated, this movie's overrated. I even pulled up a list, and I can't believe this list that I found here. It's like they have Shawshank Redemption in here. They have Fletch, which I can't believe. If Fletch is considered overrated, then that's the one for me, because I love me some Fletch. I quote it daily sometimes. That's one of them. I would say that I heard that a certain E.T. was overrated for a top 10 show.
What?
I love E.T. and do not believe it to be overrated. Believe it deserving of a number 1 spot in the best. I'm just giving it to
Saying
you. That's
something
all.
is overrated is so hard because that's so opinion based.
It really is. It really is.
So I mean, I could even we've talked about how Shawshank Redemption. I can never say that, but it plays every weekend, all weekend long. So that could be considered maybe overrated, only in the sense that it's on all the time, but not overrated in the sense that it doesn't deserve the credit. So how do you even judge a movie being overrated? Yeah,
it's really hard, and especially with Shawshank, what you say, it kind of bombed in theaters. Not a lot of people saw it, and it caught on later. Yeah. And then I have heard Shawshank Redemption is overrated because it's too it's so just serious and and then heartwarming at the end and literal. He climbs through a mile of shit, and then he's on the other side. I'm like, dude, you didn't get it. I love that movie, but that's me.
I agree with you. I absolutely love that movie. I see it every time it's on. It's such a powerful movie because it's got so much to say. I don't know how that movie could ever be overrated because it doesn't try to be grandiose. It's about the small struggles we go through as human beings in tough situations and how we can survive by clinging on to hope when all hope looks lost.
Yeah.
Mine is Shakespeare in Love. I absolutely love this film, shill for this film, and I will fight anybody who tries to convince me that Saving Private Ryan deserved the Oscar over Shakespeare in Love. I think Shakespeare in Love is properly rated as an Oscar-winning picture. I love this movie to death. I remember the experience having it, but I'm a theater kid. I can only speak from my own personal experience. Like Mark said at the beginning here, it's subjective, right?
Yeah.
It's this idea. So for me, I love it because it really encapsulates the life of being in a theater. Yeah. Absolutely perfectly. And the crazy stuff that happens and the lunacy. And yes, it always seems to work out right before opening night. That was not a fallacy. Producers go nuts, worry about everything. And plus, it's got great performances. Maybe one of the last great performances from Gwyneth Paltrow. Joseph Fiennes is fantastic. Who disappeared and kind of went off the map. You'll see him in a couple of movies like Risen. He was nice in Risen. I thought that was a decent film, but he didn't blow up like his brother Rafe, who played obviously Voldemort. He who should not be named. So, but the film itself has this joy, and I really love about it. And if you're into Shakespeare, if you're into that time period, it really hits all the buttons for you. So to me, I think that's a film that people think is overrated, but I love it to pieces.
I agree with you there. I love that movie. However, I wish it would have been released a year later and win the Best Picture, because I do believe Saving Private Ryan deserved it, but I do follow along with you and believe that it does have the merits for a Best Picture. So I did like it.
Do you have anything? Is there anything? Well, I know this one wasn't on the list, but do you?
I don't even know what overrated means anymore. I've been thinking about it.
Is Titanic overrated?
No, I don't think Titanic is overrated.
Okay.
I guess the closest that I could come up with would be something that's overtaken pop culture, like a Scream movie. But I also don't find that overrated. I love Scream, and I guess overrated in the sense where it's we all still talk about it, and it's such a huge cult following. Then maybe I could say Scream. I guess I could say even Nightmare on Elm Street, but I don't know. Overrated sounds negative to me.
Yeah.
I don't find those movies overrated.
Yeah.
I love
That's
them.
fair.
I would watch them today.
That's fair. All right, what do we got next?
Adam writes, hello, Collider crew. What is a movie that you realized was simply awful even while watching it as a child? For me, it's Mortal Kombat Annihilation. I remember watching this monstrosity on VHS when I was 12, and even then I just knew it's horrible. Thank you so much for making my day, and keep on being Collider-tastic.
My answer is Goonies, I think. No, I'm joking.
Watch it.
No, I think for me, and this is going to be terrible, it's No Holds Barred, which is the Hulk Hogan film, which when he fought Zeus. I was such a Hogan fan growing up as a kid that I went to see this terrible movie in the theaters, and I absolutely enjoyed the stupidity of this movie, and I've seen it subsequently, and it is cheesy beyond cheesy, but I still have a special place in my heart for it. So I know it's terrible. It is terrible, but I will watch it if it's ever on TV. Hulk Hogan, Tiny Lister plays the character of Zeus, and they set up this like match, and they even made it happen in real life on wrestling to have some match, as if they could, they would think they could cross the line between a film and wrestling. So yeah, that's a terrible film. And The Destruction of Jared Sin is the other one. Which
I'm not familiar with that.
It's one from the 80s. I knew that was a bad movie, but I still enjoyed the heck out of that thing.
Nice. Well, if we're talking childhood, I remember excitedly getting ready to watch Superman 3.
Oh,
and I was like, oh, this is good. Here we go. Richard Pryor? Oh, okay. Sure, Richard Pryor. And the little kid, little Reilly was like, oh, sure, Richard Pryor, fine. Superman's in it. We can watch Superman. Wow, was that movie? That movie started, and I'm like, wait a minute. This is like a slapstick opening. There's a guy like slips on a banana peel, and then the paint. It's this chain reaction that starts Superman 3. And I'm watching it as a kid, going, what? Who the? It was awful. And I sat through the whole thing. I remember being in the theater with my family and looking at my mom and just going. Because I was the biggest Superman fan, obviously. Yeah. And that one just killed me. And then most recently was Transformers Age of Extinction.
Well, here we go.
Oh, man, that thing started, and I was just like, I'm going to give it a shot. They're trying to do something different. We got Mark Wahlberg, and you're telling, oh, man. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to rant. But, jeez, that thing was just, I could tell, it was just awful from frame one.
Well, this is a great point you make, because I think the loss of innocence of us as kids, it happens in sports and it happens in movies. The first time your sports team lose and you can understand what you're watching in the loss, the tears, it's a way of maturing you against your will. And the same thing happens with the movie. You're so excited to see a movie, you go see a movie like Gremlins 2, and you're like, oh, man, or something like that, like you were saying when you went to see Superman 3, which is really does not hold up in any way, shape, or form.
No.
And you watch it, you're like, oh man, this is so bad, and you realize it, and you're like, wait, my heroes are capable of hurting me, or my heroes of me going to see something that hasn't let me down yet is capable of letting me down, And those are terrible rites of passage as kids.
Yeah, no kidding. You must have been with me when I was watching the national championship game of Texas versus USC. You ever see a grown man cry? That was me. So there you go.
Mine was when Dallas beat the Redskins in the early 80s. Oh, man.
There you go.
The worst. All right. What's our next thing?
Jonathan Rios writes, hey, Collider crew, Westerns used to rule the box office. The 90s had action movies, and in today's market, we see superhero movies as the primary breadwinner for studios. My question to you is, what's the next big trend? I personally would like to see more good sci-fi like Gravity, Interstellar, The Martian, and the upcoming Arrival. Thanks, Johnny.
Shared universe of slapstick comedy movies. I have no idea. It is so hard. This is a great question.
Yeah.
It's really hard to tell. I mean, I feel like genre aside, there was in the 80s, the big thing was like all original kind of action movies. You had your Lethal Weapons, your Die Hards, then you had your E.T.s and your Goonies, and your there wasn't the superhero genre, I guess, that there was the occasional Superman and then Batman in 89 later. But I mean, I would go, they bring up sci-fi. I think sci-fi could be, it depends. Superhero movies are based on the brand. You have everything is brand driven right now, so that's why superhero movies are so popular. But I would go with original sci-fi movie. I'm hoping the next big trend is the return to original screenplays, which would be so fun to see. Just somebody like those writers back in the 80s that would just like the Shane Blacks, who still continue to kick butt now. But I just wish that there was an original screenplay that would be considered, whatever genre it may be, as the next big thing. But we're now in the superhero universe has made way for the shared universe. And now we're going to get that with the monsters at Universal. We're going to get that. We're kind of getting it with Harry Potter, Star Wars, certainly. It's a really good question. I would go to sci-fi. Horror, maybe. Horror could maybe do some big things, but like we're talking like these superhero movies, we're talking $200 million openings. Yeah. So it's hard to see that for a horror movie. I could see it with a sci-fi movie, but when you take Star Wars out of the equation and to a lesser degree Star Trek, what's the next big thing? I think you can maybe look at some sci-fi books back in the day, like Orson Scott Card. We tried with, God, please.
Oh yeah.
Why can't I? I'm completely blanking on this.
Yes, with Harrison Ford and Ben
Yeah.
Kingsley.
I have a computer here, so I'm going to, because I'm obviously not awake on this fine Sunday.
Ender's Run.
Yeah, thank you.
Ender's Game.
Ender's Game. Yeah,
it's always in there. It's
I
always
know.
In there, yeah.
So some of these movies I think could do it, but sci-fi would be the easiest call for me to be the next big thing and the next big trend. But I don't know, Rocha, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a great question as well. I echo what you're saying, and I actually was having a conversation with somebody last night. We went to see the Jason Bourne movie. We were talking afterwards, and he was saying, "Do you think we're almost done with superhero movies because he didn't enjoy his experience in Suicide Squad? He thinks he was." And I'm saying, and I said to him, "No, this is not going to end anytime soon. We're talking it's going to go on for at least another 2 decades.
Yeah.
People want to extend this out. Actors want to play these roles. They do make money on all the it's Hollywood. It's built on business, making that money. Like you said, a $200 million opening.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't see it ending anytime soon. Especially like you said, the shared universe. You want to bring on female superheroes and make them leads. And then you're going to start talking about minority superheroes. We already see that happen with Black Panther being a lead. So there's still stuff to explore here and to expand the genre a lot and see how far they can go before the bubble pops.
Yeah.
My thing is fantasy. I really think fantasy, like Harry Potter, like Lord of the Rings, etc., those kinds of films
That's a good call.
The next ones that I think they're going to come in. And the reason is because of what's going on in our culture today, what's going on around the world, the terrorism, the anger that's out there, the frustration people have with the political side of things, whatever way you're voting, whatever way you're leaning, you're still frustrated by the other side or the other sides. And that happens. We're seeing with terrorism, we're seeing with attacks, we're seeing with what happened in Turkey. We're seeing all this stuff happen. And when that usually happens, people want to escape.
Yeah.
When stuff was going down in the 80s is when fantasy really took off and became big too, because the nuclear war was really imminent back in the 80s, and people went to these films to escape their reality and wanted to lose themselves in the theater. And I think fantasy is a way to get so viscerally involved. Working at Harry Potter as I do, I see it every day with people who come in and they stay as long as possible in the park so they can stay out of their world and enjoy this make-believe world that's here and lose themselves in it and feel happy for just a few hours before they have to resume their reality.
That's a great point. And I'd put A New Hope, Star Wars original, in their fantasy space opera, but coming on the heels of the Vietnam War, that was a big point that people went for the escape, and then to be wowed by the opening of the Star Destroyer and knowing that we're in a different galaxy, that really resonated in an audience, obviously.
Yeah, and it can't be surprising that Force Awakens comes around on the heels of everything that's been happening now recently.
Absolutely.
It's almost perfect timing, What about you, Sinead?
Well, I feel like I would love to just go back to straight action movies. Without any monsters and without any aliens and without any sci-fi at all. And
I'm with you.
We still, I appreciate sci-fi movies. I appreciate fantasy movies. The Harry Potter franchise is one of my favorites. And I like that, but there is so much of it still to me that right now I appreciate movies like a John Wick that comes out and there's no BS. It's just like, you killed my dog and I'm going to kick your ass for it. And there's like nothing else. There's nothing else to it. There's no gloss to it. It's just like what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just miss those kinds of movies happening more frequently. And then aside from that, I would love to just get like 2 years of just amazing, hilarious comedies. Also original. Yeah. Just like done with the reboots, and just give me some funny, awesome written comedies, because comedy is my favorite genre. And there was a point in time where I had like a whole year of just feeling like I was satisfied with comedies, and it's been a minute, and I would love to just like look back in the year and be like, damn, I laughed my ass off all year.
That's a great call. God, I remember the run that the Farrelly brothers had. Something about Mary coming out and just killed it. That's a really good point too. I would love to see the great comedies that come and just open like gangbusters, and then they, and everybody's like talking about this comedy movie. That's a great one. Yeah.
All right, Patricio writes, hello, Collider crew. First of all, thank you for providing meaningful film commentary in the internet. Since we are all talking about Rotten Tomatoes as of late, I wanted to share an experience and ask if you have seen something similar. I have friends and family members that check the tomato meter score for all of the movies that are coming out. Usually I have a hard time getting them to watch a film that is below 70% because they state that the movie must be bad if it got that score. What I usually explain is that the tomato meter score reflects the percentage of critics who enjoyed the film, which means that even a movie with a 65% means that more than half of the critics enjoyed it. With the standard that my friends have, I wouldn't even get them to watch The Goonies, 67% on tomato meter, or some cool cat like Mark wouldn't get his friends to see Bad Moms, which has a 63%. Do you see people increasingly not giving some divisive films a chance because of the tomato meter? What are your thoughts on this? Also, please listen to the fans and include Perry in everything. Everything! Thanks again, Collider Crew.
Nice.
Interesting. Yeah, a lot of love for Perry. That was Perry's cousin, I think, who wrote that. So much love to Patricio for that. No, no, absolutely. We all love Perry, and absolutely, we should bring her on here to replace me right now. Here's what I would say to you. This is an interesting question because it has a lot of layers to it. Yes. People look at these tomato meters. It's a way of making an easy decision. If it's below 70, I'm not going to go. Or if I go, I know I'm going to see a bad movie. And if it's good, great. And if I like it, great. But I'm not necessarily going to invest. Plus, the price of movie tickets have gone up. So that makes you going to the movies a very expensive proposition because you're talking popcorn, candy, you're talking and feeding a family. You're looking at $100 just to go see a movie. And so it's like, in your mind, yeah, maybe some people make 6 figures. God love you, all of you that do, or 7 figures, 8 figures, whatever. But a lot of people don't, and so they're not going to necessarily spend money on a film they think is going to be bad if there's not some impetus to go see it. And so I think that it's a smart move for them to look and see what they do. But another way around it is to find a critic that you really like and trust, and read that and become a fan of that critic and understand how that critic, how he or she analyzes a film, and then you can decide for yourself if that's a film that you can convince your friends to go see or your family go to see, and make them fans of that critic so that they will have a trustworthiness relationship cemented there, and they'll go see the film. The other thing is this. Films are more available now digitally. They're available on TV. They come on TV a lot quicker on the pay channels. They come on, and that's cheaper for people to buy, and you can get it on demand. You can sit at home. A lot of people don't want to go and have people on their cell phones, people making noises, people making it out in the theaters. They want to sit at home and watch a film. And the sound systems are a lot more affordable than they used to be, so people can create their pseudo theaters at their houses. So that's I think there's a lot going on here with this question.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
And it made me really think about a lot of the things I'm seeing now, marketing-wise. They're slapping that that Rotten Tomato rating on the movie posters, in all the campaigns and the ads, the commercials. And I look at 2 different types of moviegoers. The one litmus test is always my mother, who will doesn't even know what Rotten Tomatoes is. Right. You know, she can see that, and I don't know what that is. You know, who cares? I'm gonna go. She sees everything. Yeah. And I like to gauge her response. For this, though, I would say, if we're looking at the question, you're trying to give these divisive films a chance, and you're trying to tell your friends, listen, who cares if it's a 50%? Means half critics liked it, half didn't. So you have a 50-50 chance of looking at it. I know it's crazy. Go on Twitter. Follow some film reviewers, follow all the cool cats here, and they're going to voice their opinion whether they like it or not. Look at he even brought up Mark Ellis. Yep. He says Bad Moms is great. Yeah. It's great, and it's doing well at the box office. I can't remember what the Rotten Tomatoes is, but
he's claiming 63%. I think it's higher than that, but yeah.
Okay, there you go. Oh, it's in the question. I should have just looked down. That's all right. Hey, look at that. I would say look at Mark Ellis. You watch him on Movie Talk. He's singing its praises, and it doesn't reflect this score. If you take him just personally and put it up against the score, he liked it. So do you believe Mark? Do you like his taste? Go. So follow these guys on Twitter. And I do like the Rotten Tomatoes reviews and the format and the website and all that. I think is a great website, and I like what they do, but I don't listen to it. I listen to my friends and colleagues. Yeah. At the end of the day, and then I listen to myself too, with I'm gonna see Suicide Squad, even though I didn't like it after I left the theater. I was gonna see that movie opening night because I want to see it. Critics be damned. Yeah. So that's my advice.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great too. What do we got next?
Langley M. Neely writes, hey there, Collider Party people. I will save the pleasantries because you know what you do and how amazing you are at it. Simple question. With all the recent evidence of WB being so reactionary and gun-shy when making their DC cinematic universe, I refuse to call it extended, because of Marvel Studios' record of success, do you think WB would have ever tried to make a cinematic universe had Marvel not done it first? Basically, would WB have had the vision, drive, or forethought to try this after the Nolan Bat trilogy in a world where no such thing had ever existed? Thanks.
My boy Langley. I love this question.
Yeah.
And so I'm putting on my like analytics hat because I'm looking at the examples given in Nolan's Bat trilogy. I'm looking at Green Lantern, which came out in 2011 after 2008's Iron Man, which started the shared universe and teased it at the end with Nick Fury. And I think under that current leadership, no, they wouldn't have figured it out. I think they would have just tried Green Lantern, failed, okay. We didn't get another Batman like Dark Knight, so let's try Wonder Woman. Yeah. Okay, let's try this, let's try that. And it wasn't only until Man of Steel was announced with Zack Snyder. That wasn't announced as a shared universe movie. Yeah. That came later. So that was a reaction to Marvel cleaning it up, because by the time Man of Steel rolls around, we've already had the Avengers, and they're like, we need our shared universe. It was a reaction to it. So I think with different leadership, maybe. But again, I look at Marvel. Marvel took out a $500 million loan from Merrill Lynch and created their own studio. Yeah. And then Disney bought them. So their first foray was Iron Man. So they were taking chances, and they were looking forward going, we're going to do this. Mm-hmm. So I think it's different with Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers owns a lot of things, Time Warner, one of them being just DC. I think that they probably would have looked at that. Maybe Jeff Johns was going, guys, we need a shared universe. Check it out, before even Marvel. Maybe it was some creative. We don't know. But I think when it finally gets to the higher ups at Time Warner, too risky. Yeah. Because they're not just doing their own thing right now like Marvel did. So it's very dependent on the leadership over there. It's a studio system. I just don't see it. Maybe if DC was its separate entity like Marvel was, then I trust the creatives, because comic books are a shared universe. Yeah. No matter what you say, they pop up together all the time, the characters. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know, Rocha.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think my belief, I'm a little more firmer than Mark in that. I think it's absolutely true that they would have never come up with a shared universe. I think they had many opportunities with the success of the initial Batman run in the early 90s, and they didn't do any of that. And then when it came through with Nolan, they didn't do any of that. And it was, how many attempts do you get before you realize that you're playing catch up? And yes, as soon as they started doing the Superman Batman, I was there in Hall H at Comic-Con when they announced that they were crossing them over. Yeah. Everyone got super excited about it, which was great. Yeah. But they were doing it as a reaction to the success that Marvel had doing it with Disney. And Mark, you bring up a great point with the $500 million loan. Marvel was thinking ahead, and that's what happens in this business of movies. You've got to be that company, that studio that's thinking ahead, because when you do, you're the one that can catch that tiger by its tail and make the money from the audience. And that's what happened, and they were so successful at doing it. And yeah, there have been some missteps and what have you. You can have your opinions on it, but generally overall they've been successful at it. Mm-hmm. DC has not quite been as successful at it as you have to admit, whether you love the movies or not. It's a spotty record, and so it's like it's they haven't gotten off to as much of a strong start as Marvel did, and so they're playing catch up in so many ways now, and it doesn't feel original. And they're kind of damned if they didn't, and damned if they do, because they could have been stubborn and be like, no, we're not going to do the shared universe. Right. But they saw that fans were clamoring for it, so they had to do it. So I didn't think they would have ever done it if Marvel hadn't been successful at it. Now that Marvel they're trying to play catch up, and I think they're getting caught from behind. I think they're getting caught falling behind.
Yep. Definitely.
And what about you, Sinead?
I don't know. That's a tough call. I don't think they necessarily would have done it at that time, but I think that the whole extended universe thing is such a thing right now that like everyone kind of seems like they would want to do that with their franchises. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's hard to say that Marvel is the ones that made them do it. Maybe they made them do it at the time that they did it. Yeah. But I think eventually it would have become a thing in one way or another, because right now that's a trend across the board. I mean, and just like branching out on any brand is a thing across the board. Reboots, sequels, franchises, trilogies, quadrilogies. Like everyone wants to do it because the fans are asking for it. So I think eventually it would have still been a thing.
Well, the rumors are, the Men in Black crossing over with
21 Jump Street.
21 Jump Street. That's happening, and there's rumors about Blade Runner crossing over with Alien. Like so that's becoming a thing.
And like the Godzilla King Kong. I mean, like everybody wants it. I don't know when it'll ever end, so I think it would have happened eventually.
I mean, I guess they kind of did it with Predator 2 when the alien skull was in the ship.
That's right.
They were already nodding at it because of the Dark Horse comic series of the same. So I guess it's been thought of before, but you make a good point, Sinead. I think they would have stumbled on it. It's like the invention of sliced bread. It was right there in front of you, and it's like, oh, it's just kind of the no-brainer.
Yeah.
But Marvel really blazed the path truly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, what do we got next?
All right. Bobby writes, hey guys, in light of the news that some Suicide Squad fans are suing Warner Brothers for false advertising, if you had the opportunity, which film would you consider taking legal action against and why? Mine would be Transformers 1, 2, 3, etc.
Yes.
Thanks, Bobby S. I know you agree with him, Rocha. I know you were dying to sue the Transformers franchise.
Bobby, you're all wrong. I would never sue the Transformers franchise. They're awesome, and they provide me with a job at times. So I will not say anything negative about them. False advertising? I don't know. Pacific Rim? Thanks for getting me excited about something I totally did not enjoy. I would have sued you for that. The Kaijudo, all that stuff, I would have sued for that. I think Daredevil I would have sued for. Got me super excited for that. A lot of people would say Independence Day Resurgence. You could sue them for that. I think there's a number of films where you get excited and you go to see them. Some people would sue them for the Hobbit trilogy. Some people would do that. I'm not in that camp. I love the Hobbit trilogy, but a lot of people would sue them for those kinds of things. So I understand. Me personally, those are the ones that I jump to. I would say the last two Batman movies. Man, I tried to watch Batman Forever the other night. That does not hold up in any way, shape, or form. It is
doesn't.
so ridiculous. Yeah, they're all in different films. You're just watching all in different films, and the bat nipples, like all of that, it just goes crazy. It just is too much. So Schumacher would have been sued by me for those last two films. Absolutely, that one and whatever that last one was, Batman and Robin. What about you, Mark?
I love this question. It's hilarious.
It's a very awesome question.
I'm gonna play the what if. Okay, if. You go into a movie theater. Maybe I picked it because of the Transformers references. I surely would have sued the hell out of everybody for Age of Extinction. I mean, that was just a god awful mess.
Is that the last one?
That's the last one. Yeah. I mean, I'll just let. I mean, Transformers the first one. I was like, sure, it's fine. They didn't really hit it well. I mean, but I genuinely enjoyed it, and I said, okay, whatever. Revenge of the whatever fallen idiots. That was
fallen idiots.
The fallen idiots. That was a movie that was a very big train wreck because of the writers' strike at the time, and they just had like the skeleton of a script, and they're like, let's just shoot this thing. And the third one's fine, whatever. It didn't bother me, but Age of Extinction just gets under my skin because it was poorly made. It was like Michael Bay was sitting with his feet up somewhere, having his 8 assistants direct it in a committee. So. I'll sue them. I'll sue them. I'm not going to sue Lucas. I'm going to sue, because I love Lucas, he's my boy. I'm going to sue his producer, Rick McCallum, for not having some balls to say, hey, Lucas, maybe you pull Jar Jar away for the time being, because the prequels, talk about false advertising, one of the greatest trailers of all time in Phantom Menace, and then we got Phantom Menace. But we got into this a lot on Far, Far Away. I love the prequels now. I have a very great respect for the prequels now, and I want more prequel references in these new Star Wars movies. But I just look at Rick McCallum, that producer. If you see the special features on these prequels, I mean, he's just like, yep, that's a great idea. Yep, over there, great idea. Hey, over there, great idea. You want that tennis ball there to do things? Great idea. He just bothered me, so I'm going to sue you, buddy. What else would I sue?
He can afford it. Because I imagine that's why he was saying yes so much, because his paychecks were pretty heavy.
Yeah, they were. That's what he was doing. I don't know. Those are the two that really jumped to mind, and maybe I'll sue the Salkins for Superman 3 and 4.
What about you, Sinead?
You know what? I would sue a movie for having an unnecessary, disturbing scene in a also very not so good movie.
Okay.
And for me,
I like this.
Okay, because I like disturbing scenes. I like disturbing scenes sometimes if the movie's good.
Sure.
But if I don't really enjoy the movie, then it just pisses me off. So it has to be Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I'll sue them too. Let's do
I will
this.
sue the hell out of them because I am traumatized when Gwen Stacy's, spoiler alert, head hits the floor.
Yeah.
And it makes that noise. It's literally the worst noise ever.
It is.
And then her nose starts bleeding, and you know that her brains have just exploded inside of her head. And then I'm thinking, God, you made me sit through that. My whole body went like tensed up. And then I looked back in the whole movie and I was like, this movie wasn't even good.
Yeah.
And you still got to me. Like, screw you.
Yeah.
And I would 100% sue those mother effers.
I'm jumping on with that one too. That's a great call. I mean, that's Sony right there.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just trying to get the death of Gwen Stacy comics, which was one of the most popular lines in the Spider-Man comics. So they went with it, but yeah, it was a train wreck up into that moment. And then they're trying to get you to care about the movie by killing off the best part of the movie.
Right, exactly.
In Emma Stone's performance.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I get it. It's the comic book, so sure, she's dead, whatever.
Right.
But, that movie, the audience sued that movie because it didn't make any money. And, well, it made a lot of money, but then it's gone now. So
it's gone.
there you go.
Yeah. All right, what's our last question?
All right, Adam writes, hey guys, what is a movie that brought you to tears and you never would have expected it to? Doesn't matter if it was because of someone dying or just tears of joy. May sound silly, but for me it was The Truman Show. I started cheering up in the theater when he discovers that his whole life was based on a TV show when he's in that boat.
Oh, okay.
It's good.
My Life as a House. Have you seen that?
I just referenced it earlier.
Hayden Christensen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You want to know if that boy could act? That boy can act. Watch My Life as a House. Kevin Kline.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
That
Such a good movie.
Heaving sobs in the end of that movie. I walked out of that theater. I remember being with one of my best friends, Joe Town, and we walk out and we're both I remember it was at AMC Century City before they redid everything.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like under the escalator going, what's wrong with me? It was like, maybe it was like the father, I don't know what it was, but it shocked the hell out of me because I'm like, we're just going to this movie, whatever. And I just couldn't stop crying. And surprised the hell out of me. And it's a great movie and I love it. And what shocks me still every day is I still cry my eyes out at E.T. Rocha.
Oh, yes, I know you do. You're grinding all those axes here today. Go ahead, keep going.
No, grinding, no. Jabbing, yes.
Jabbing, yes.
There you go. Those are mine. What about you, dude?
I would say the film that unexpectedly made me cry was this quiet little film called House of Sand and Fog.
Oh, great
which
movie.
I've talked about, a couple of times. I knew About Time is the most recent one that maybe broke me open, but I knew that was going to. It's the death of the father, right? It's the thing about this. So I knew that was going to happen. But with House of Sand and Fog, I walked in knowing it was a dark film. I didn't know how dark they were going to go. Yeah. And when the moment happened, I broke open wide. I mean, I was heaving, sobbing from that because I just was like, oh my God. Because if you're the son of immigrant parents, like you feel those stories when they're done really well on film. You feel them in a very visceral way. Yeah. And I feel like that film really captures it, and the frustration on both sides, because if one or both had just taken a moment to stop, none of this would have happened. So when the tragedy happens, you're just like, no. And then they double down on you want to talk about the Gwen Stacy thing? They double down on the Gwen Stacy moment right after the Gwen Stacy moment. That's what's so insane about this film. It's literally, it starts with a dark cloud rolling in over the city of, I think, San Francisco or Seattle, and it progresses from that to the end. It is just darkness all around, but it's so well done. And if you could put yourself through it, it's worth it. But the just broke me wide open. What about you, Sinead?
Well, it's not as surprising like once you see the movie, but it was surprising for me at the time because I had zero clue what the movie was about, and that was Marley and Me. I thought it was like a fun, loving comedy. I thought it was a comedy. It was gonna be great. Like the dog terrorizes the family. I was like, let's watch this movie with my family when I had to excuse myself to my bedroom because I couldn't hold it together. And I grew up with dogs, but I had a really horrific experience happen to me when I was about 6 years old. My dog was stolen out of our backyard.
What kind of a lunatic asshole does that?
He was a Staffordshire Bull Terrier. He was beautiful, and they had a female Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and they wanted to breed them. And they had come by and like petted them or whatever, and we thought they were like neighborhood kids, but they took them. They took them from us.
Did you
South
find
Africa.
them?
No.
Oh my God.
No, in South Africa, it's actually pretty sad that it's a common thing.
Is it oh man, that would
people just come and they steal things all the time. So they stole our dog, and it was awful. My dad drove us around for like 2 weeks looking for his name is Max, and I since then have always been like, I don't want a dog, because it was one of the most heartbreaking things. It like ages you. It ages you immediately when you lose something you're that close to.
Rites of passage.
I have always been like, everyone else can get dogs. Like my my family, my parents actually have a dog. I don't consider him my dog. And it's always been because I'm really afraid to get close to dogs. That movie tore me apart because it was the first time I like truly remembered being close to an animal. I was hysterically crying for like 2 hours after the movie. I was like, just don't talk to me. Like, I need a minute. And like now, when you see the movie, you're like, obviously you cried in it. But I had no idea what the movie was about, saying it ruined my life.
Yeah, so. I did too. And Perry brought it up the other day on Movie Talk, and she was just like, she hated that movie because they're like, you manipulated me by killing the dog in front of me. I read the book, I knew it. And I read the book too, so when it was coming, the waterworks because Marley's Cal, my dog Cal, is a lab just like Marley, and I remember being on a trip with my ex at the time. And it was Christmas, and we saw it during Christmas, and I wasn't with Cal, and I'm like, I have to fly home now. Wow. I have to get back to my dog. Yeah, but that's a good one.
Oh, that's sweet.
I would say the Saving Private Ryan moment too, where he after Ribisi. What happens to Ribisi?
Yeah.
When Hanks has his cough cry moment, it's the same thing. Because the sound of Ribisi calling for his mom.
Oh God.
Devastating.
That's right.
Devastating. And having been in the military, I understand those moments. I viscerally understand those moments. And the same thing in Forrest Gump when he's holding Bubba after he saves him and he realizes that Bubba's dying in his arms. Every single time, man.
Forrest, I'll go home. Oh, I know. I'm with you, man. That got me. I'm like,
home?
Yeah. That was a good cry today on Mailbag.
So you guys are like men, though. So like for you, when you cry, it's like, oh, he's crying.
Yeah, like this.
It's endearing, right?
For me,
totally.
it's like a hobby. Like I love crying. I'm like,
I know.
I get to cry today. Like literally.
That's how women make fun of us crying because when we cry, it's like 10 other times we held it back. We just let it go that one time and it's
awkward.
over.
It's like so awkward. Like the girls are like, what do I do? Like, do I ask him if he's all right?
No, my girlfriend's used to it now. She just rolls her eyes. She's like,
get it together.
She's like, I'm going to go out and drink. Well, I don't know what you're doing.
All right. Well, I think that's a perfect way to end today's mailbag. What a good. Thanks, guys, so much for sending in the questions. We really appreciate it. It's so much fun to hear what you guys think and challenge us on these questions and our thoughts. So it's so much fun to explore that with you all. Let's go around the table. Mark, where can people find you?
At Reilly Around on Twitter and Instagram. I will be on Collider Nightmares on Tuesday. The Schmoes No Main show, and I pop up every once in a while on Jedi Council. And maybe I'll be having a match on the Ultimate Schmoedown tournament soon. Hello. I don't know who I'm playing yet, but I will be in the tournament, so I'm coming for that belt. Sorry, Rocha. Coming for that belt.
It's all right. We're all going for it.
Yep.
Sinead, where can people find you?
I'm online at Sinead DeVries and at thatsosinead.com. On Monday, back for TV Talk. On Thursday night, I'm going to make an appearance hanging out with the Schmoes. And on Friday, I'll be hosting Movie Talk. And then you can find me on Mailbag again next weekend.
Wow. Guys, you can always find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. See all the shows I'm hosting, co-hosting, or getting to be a guest on. I love doing this stuff. It's so much fun. And I need to get on TV Talk more. I had such a great time that one episode I was on with you all.
Yeah, it
was
so fun.
Such a blast.
You have to come back.
Yeah, you guys have a great energy, and it's so much fun to be on that show. Wednesdays, 2 p.m., the Top 10 show here on Collider. Please watch us. Me and Matt Nose count down the top 10 films of whatever film is coming out that week that we choose to highlight. And also, please listen to me, my new podcast, The Cinephiles, where me and my film professor friend Steve Morris, we break down one film before the year 2000, and a classic film before the year 2000, and talk about its legacy, which is so much fun. And for those who watched the Schmoedown, it happened. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching Collider Mailbag. Please subscribe. Leave your comments. We love reading them. And watch and subscribe to all the content we have here, the wonderful content here on Collider Network. See you next time.
Hey, guys, if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll help you stay up to date with everything